everyone, and welcome back to She Builds with AI, the podcast where we spotlight women who are not just talking about AI, but actually building with it in thoughtful, practical, and deeply human ways. Today's guest is someone I have very much been looking forward to speaking with. I'm joined by Noe Ramos, VP of AI Operations at Agiloft. Noe works at the intersection of enterprise AI operations, governance, and organizational transformation. And what I find especially compelling about her perspective is that she brings a very grounded lens to a space that can so easily become noisy and overhyped. She has built a career across technology, consulting, operations, and leadership, and today she is helping shape what it really looks like to move from AI experimentation to AI capability inside an organization. But beyond that, Noe also brings such an important voice to the conversation around leadership, authenticity, neurodiversity, and the future of work. As an openly autistic woman of color in tech, she speaks with a kind of clarity and honesty that I know many of you will connect with. In this conversation, we talk about what AI operations actually means, how to scale AI without losing trust, why silent failure at scale is something more leaders should understand, and why human-centered implementation is not a nice to have, but a real strategic advantage. Noe, I'm so happy to have you here today. Welcome to She Builds with AI.
Thank you, Julia. I'm excited for this conversation as well. As you know, I feel like we're spirit animals based on our previous chats. I'm excited.
Noe, I would love to start at the beginning. You have such an interesting path across technology, operations, consulting, leadership, and now AI. When you look back, what are the chapters of your career that most shaped the way you lead today?
I think starting with the most honest answer, I think most of my career, I was serving many roles in a title that didn't represent what I was doing. And for a long time, I looked at that as a bit of a negative. And when I look at it now, I realize it's turned me into the umbrella thinker that I am, that understands the end to end because of holding so many roles at the same time or so many responsibilities at the same time. I think that is one thing that I would be remiss to mention as being actually a real positive leader in my career. But I think that the operations work in conjunction with that, whether it was my primary function or a critical piece to large scale software rollouts and transformation, or a critical piece to optimizing the way that a company was operating as far as people and process. I think that operations is one of the most critical pieces to AI because AI is so much more than just a magical technology.
True that. Now, your title today is VP of AI Operations, which is just a fascinating role to begin with because it already sounds more grounded and more practical than many of the titles we hear in the AI space today. When you explain your work to someone outside the industry, how do you describe what AI operations actually is and why it matters?
First, I ask someone how technical they are so I can frame the answer because I get every time someone hears AI in my title, they want to talk about AI. When they ask about what I do at our company, I am in charge of the transformation internally of how we roll out and utilize AI and ultimately the success of that. And the success of that at our company and what we've defined is much different than successful technology rollouts. The human component is one of the main 4 pillars of our transformation. My goal is, as you mentioned, I have a quite pragmatic approach to AI. I think it's an incredible, amazing technology, and I am just as inspired by all the amazing demos and the wonderful things that can be built. But what I care about is the material impact to our organization, being able to measure that impact. And I care about creating capacity, increasing AI literacy, and bringing our people along, teaching them their new value in this new way of work, upskilling and reskilling them. So I am holistically in charge of how we are going to use AI, how we do use AI internally, and how we redefine our workplace.
Very interesting. Like your path brings together technical depth, operational thinking, leadership, in a way that feels just especially relevant for this AI moment. And it feels like your career has prepped you not just to understand the technology, but also to understand what it takes to make it work inside real organizations. Really cool. Knowing a lot of companies right now are still somewhere between experimentation, hype, and real transformation. From your perspective, what is the difference between a company that is merely trying AI and a company that is truly becoming AI capable?
I think the ones that are genuinely transforming, they treat AI as an operational capability and not a feature. They're asking different questions. We're not asking only what can we automate, but how do we need to work differently? You also see real accountability structures, not just a task force or a pilot, but culture is moving. It's not just tooling. I think they have a web, if you will, that sure involves what will we enable, what will we buy, what will we build, but also what is the tone? What does it mean? I hear efficiency used a lot. Well, sure. We all gain efficiency from using AI in different ways. I care about capacity. And then what are we doing with that capacity? Do we need to fill it 100% back up again? Should we be relooking at should employees be working less on teams that were too lean before? How are we using it and how are we deepening the human parts that are critical to working with AI? That conversation as a whole is why we look at AI as a capability and not the end all solution to let's just operate more efficiently or let's just work with less people or there's not a it's an operational capability. It's an incredibly powerful tool. It's the power drill hammer combo in your tool belt, but everyone can misuse a tool. So I think without the greater perspective of that operational capability, they fall victim to just rolling technology out, hoping for the best.
True. Noe, one of the things I find especially interesting about your work is that you sit right at the intersection of strategy, structure, and execution. When an organization says we want to scale AI, what do you believe needs to be built behind the scenes for that to become real rather than just aspirational?
First, you need clarity. You need clarity on data, on ownership, what success actually looks like. And it's more than just adoption. Your success picture and what you're measuring needs to be much deeper than that. You also need a change management muscle, as I mentioned, that organizational change management, because scaling AI means scaling behavior change. Most organizations are underestimating that because this is new for all of us. There's many times that very veteran transformation experts who have done transformations 100 times over in their career, they're falling trapped in the same pitfalls that, we all are having to consider, which is that we can underestimate behavior change in this regard. This is a massive change, one like we've never seen, at least in my lifetime, in the workplace. And then governance that people actually follow is very important. And leaders who are willing to slow down long enough to build the foundation before pushing for speed. Those things I think are all critical to if you're going to sustainably scale. I would say those are the biggest. Yes.
Understood. Yeah, what I also heard often is that teams are resistant of using AI, but it seems like companies have understood that it needs these change management, AI enablement roles. I heard that a lot at the fair, which was like, finally, there we go.
Yes, it's critical. It is critical. I often said at the beginning of our official start when I took this role last October, it was I could roll out technology, process data effortlessly and flawlessly in this perfect world. But if I didn't bring our people along, if we didn't enable our people deeply, if we didn't teach them not only how to use the technology, but what to do with that extra capacity, how to deepen their human skills, how to upskill and reskill, I would consider this transformation a failure. And that's the standard that I've held to. And I am seeing peers really deeply understand that, this is very important. It's very important to start early as you can because it's going to really impact your outcome in ways that you can't even imagine. It's going to really impact your outcome. We can even know it's important and know we need to do it. And you're still going to be surprised, hopefully in a positive way, but you're still going to be surprised at the impact, right? And I think it's just really important to be honest about that. And humans are resistant to change. Like we all know this. This is a basic logical fact.
Right.
Yes. And they're getting, they're getting this in their personal life, in their professional life. It's coming at them from all angles. But I think it's also very important. We call it creating the spark. And one of the biggest joys of my job and working with the people at our company is that moment that I see the AI spark, where they have now seen themselves in the work or seen themselves in the possibility, and they're just on fire. They can't stop talking about it. It doesn't matter what their literacy level for AI is. It doesn't matter if they know the difference between an intelligence system or an agent or the million ways we're all using the word workflow, that energy and fire around it. We've identified with our people ops partners who are so critical to this, we've identified the spark as being that's the pivotal moment. And that's the moment we need to create for everyone to bring them along.
That expression, the spark, that works really nicely. Noe, in a space that is just full of demos, like bold claims and constant noise everywhere, how do you personally separate what is truly valuable from what is simply impressive on the surface?
Isn't it all impressive? I mean, there's very rarely a demo that I can sit through that I'm not wowed by what it's able to do. I ask whether it changes a decision or outcome for our business. Impressive technology can generate a lot of motion without creating any movement. I want to know if something makes work better for the people doing it, not just faster on paper. And if you strip away the demo, does the value hold? For me, that's the test. Because, my LinkedIn inbox is full of people wanting to demo, AI tools and so many impressive ones. But I'm definitely very grounded and pragmatic with outcome. And I think that really, if you can strip away the demo and see the value for changing a decision or outcome in a very material way for your organization, that's how you stay grounded instead of getting swept away in the wave of, I'm so impressed. This is so amazing. There's a lot of things that are really amazing that belong in an organization.
Definitely. Just such an important distinction. Like a lot of organizations just talk about AI strategy, but they have not really built the operational muscle to really make it stick, right?
Absolutely.
Really cool. Noe, you have shared a really powerful idea that governance without trust can become compliance theater. I would love to unpack that with you. What does trustworthy AI governance actually look and feel like inside an organization that wants to move fast, but still move responsibly?
I love using that phrase. I don't know where it came out that day, but I do love using it. I think that, compliance theater is people checking boxes, nothing changing. So ultimately what I mean by that phrase, trustworthy governance is built with the people who will live inside of it, not handed down to them. It's transparent about limitations. It's not just focused on what AI can do. And it creates a room and creates the space for people to raise concerns without penalty. Because when you quiet that voice is when you really get into potentially dangerous territory. You have to have that safe space where they can question it or raise concern, and they're not going to be penalized for that. Speed and responsibility aren't opposites if you design for both from the very beginning. I think a lot of people look at governance or compliance as, that's just going to slow us down. Well, there's a balance. There's a balance where you have to operate, especially in our space. We're in the legal tech space. We are responsible for very sensitive data for lots of customers, and we do need to be measured and we do need to be careful. This may be internal transformation and not with our customers' very valuable data. However, we have to balance that measured enabling experimentation and really designing responsibility and speed together. And I think that we started with that with our strategy. We're sticking with that. And thankfully, our employees also feel we're innovating at the right pace. We just learned that from a survey that almost 3/4 of our employees felt we were implementing at exactly the right pace, which was encouraging to hear on both ends, that not the majority thought we were too slow, and that they also didn't feel they were being swept away.
Balance. I love that framing because good governance should create confidence, right? And not just like friction, like for its own sake. Really, really nice. Noe, AI adoption is often framed as a technical challenge, but your perspective brings in people, trust, and change. How do you help teams feel supported and empowered when AI is introduced?
I'm at our corporate services offsite right now, and I just did a presentation on AI yesterday because I'm always conscious of making space for fear without treating it as a problem to fix. Because the respect you should have for AI is there should always be a little bit of fear, just not the fear that impacts your willingness to move forward responsibly. And I started that presentation with a general overview of how technology has evolved, what is happening in the world with AI, not just the things we're doing day to day at work, but what are some of the great things? What are some of the cautionary things? So I think making space for people to have fear or skepticism without treating it as a problem to fix is important because I think we know that people resist things generally because they don't understand it. But in AI, people don't resist AI because they don't understand it for the most part. They resist because no one has told them what it means for them specifically. And in your career, that can be really scary. And I think there's a certain level of empathy that you need to show. And that's why we talk about the spark and them seeing themselves in the work. Because once they know what it means for them specifically in their role, not even just broadly for the company, but they see themselves in it, I think that that's when you really feel that they then feel supported. That creates that safe space. And then they want to experiment more. They're coming with better ideas that my team couldn't come up with because we don't understand their work at the level that they do. So I try to get concrete, very fast and let them know what stays yours, what changes, what gets easier, and what you're going to be able to do with what changes and what gets easier. Because empowerment comes from clarity, not just from enthusiasm.
Exactly. This is just where the conversation becomes really real because adoption is not just about the tool. It's about whether people feel like it's genuinely helping them. They're not scared of them. They feel that spark. Really love that expression. Really, really amazing. Nice. Noe, I also want to talk about leadership a little bit. As an openly neurodivergent woman of color in tech, you carry a perspective that is still far too underrepresented in leadership conversations. You have spoken about authenticity in the workplace and about the cost of masking. How has your perspective shaped the way you lead teams, build systems, and think about transformation?
I think the best way to answer that first is to acknowledge I am in a very safe culture to be authentic at my company. I spent most of my career feeling very, very out of place and wearing additional kind of professional masks or trying to fly under the radar to blend in. So I've spent most of my career translating between tech and business, between what's said and what's meant, between how systems work and who they're built for. But having ADHD and being autistic means I process the world differently. And for a long time, I asked that to fit in. And now I lead from it because I've pivoted to viewing it as my superpower. It doesn't change the difficulty of it. It doesn't change the challenges that it brings, but it does allow me to think of things differently, to solution differently, to understand people differently. And I lead from that. I build systems for different ways of thinking because I know what it costs when they don't. And I also think it's very important to consider when you're bringing people along. We all know like the general principles of like, oh, meet people where they work or do things this way. But I think that I've really leaned into being a neurodivergent woman of color who brings that perspective to AI. And it's very important that all perspectives are present as we evolve with AI, or we're contributing to the bias. And I don't just mean from output that's there. And so I firmly believe that it's a superpower and I lead from it. And I try to build systems that think about our employees who are neurodivergent, who aren't, how they think and how they work.
Really cool. Like what you're describing, a lot of people have struggled, like they feel the pressure to edit themselves in order to be taken seriously. So that is just really powerful to hear. Quick question in between. Was there like a moment where that just shifted, where you thought like it's not worth shrinking myself anymore?
Funny that you asked me that. One of my positions, like in recent times, I was not in the right place culturally. It just was not the right fit for me. And I stayed in that environment a very long time. And I did because I was energized by the work And though I definitely didn't feel I had opportunity and I definitely was, maybe being taken advantage of a little bit, I loved the people I worked with and I had incredible little pockets of support throughout the organization. But as the years grew there and the universe was signaling time to go and I was kind of ignoring that and keeping going, I finally got to the point that I felt so dismissed and overlooked. My performance was speaking volumes. I was, crushing my numbers. I was outperforming others, which was never the goal. But on paper, couldn't understand why the promotions weren't there, the respect or money wasn't there. And when I finally left that company, which I will share was one day before my 1 month vacation. And if I had taken that vacation and come back and worked for 1 week, I would have gotten my 6-figure bonus. And that is how over I woke up that day and said, I simply cannot go on vacation knowing I'm still being not true to myself. But I didn't know if there was any place for me. So I remember that decision point, and I took 10 months of agonizing over, do I go create my own path again? Do I go back to corporate America? What do I do? I think that over been 20 years in my career, I accepted less and always just accepted that I would need to outperform others, move
Yeah.
forward. It's a trap women fall into, right? If we
Yes.
just better, we won't be looked at this way for our family or our kids or our whatever it is. I've sat in many rooms being the most senior person in that room and still being the one asked to take notes. I've sat in many rooms being the only woman in that room and being overlooked or talked over. And what I didn't realize is environment was critical, but I decided when I came to the next company, I'm just going to be authentic. It doesn't click. It doesn't click. Of course, still being a professional, but that I'm no longer going to pretend to be someone I was not. If a company cannot value my contribution, that's not the right place for me. And I decided that and stuck with that. And thankfully, I've had this one for 6.5 years where they do value me for my contribution and only for my contribution, not my hair color, not my skin color, not my gender, not anything about me. But that moment for me is I was fed up. I was fed up. I couldn't sit with my soul anymore, is what I like to say. I woke up that day and that was it for me, Julia. Something was going to change.
Really, really bold move.
Took me a very long time to get there, Julia. It wasn't easy.
Exactly. But it was worth it. No, like it worked for you. And it's just like so inspiring just to take that as an example and just to speak your mind, be authentic. And it just doesn't cost that much energy anymore, I suppose. Like it takes so much energy just to keep up.
Those masks. Well, and the autism masks are in addition to that, right? Just the filtering and my tone and am I being received correctly on top of worrying, am I being received correctly professionally? It's emotionally and mentally exhausting. And I was determined that if I couldn't find that home, I was going to go create that home. And I'll be so clear when I made that decision. I was not sitting on loads of money. I needed to work. I needed to go to work every day. I needed, my career. But what is the true cost of your career? That's the question that I sat with at 10 months because it's something I'm so proud of. It's something I felt validated through. It's something I felt needed through. We all get different things from our work. But for me, I didn't care what my title was. I didn't care about that. I cared about my contribution. Was I having impact? The title, the money, the everything came with it when I just chose to be authentic to that impact. And I think that vulnerability, that moment prepared me, the last 20 years prepared me for that change. And I feel like this is the reward from that time that I'm experiencing now. And it has been really incredible.
Amazing. Really cool. It's highly inspiring, really, Noe. Really, really cool. Let's talk a bit about AI and the human future. You've described AI not only as an operational tool, but also as a kind of translation layer. That is such a compelling idea. How has AI helped you communicate, lead, or navigate professional environments in a way that feels more supportive?
Especially as a neurodivergent person. AI has been a kind of scaffolding for me in environments, which is pretty much the professional world, that weren't built for how my brain works. It helps me organize thinking that moves fast. because my brain moves very quickly. It really helps me communicate in ways that don't always come naturally to me and prepare for high stakes situations without burning through every resource I have mentally. It's not about replacing how I show up, but having the support to show up more fully. Because one of my challenges before using AI in that way was how emotionally and mentally drained I was at the end of a simple workday and the tax that it was taking to simply communicate well, because being kind is important to me. My tone is important to me. I'm just not great at that. It also, I really feel, allowed me to lean into authenticity a little, because when you talk to Claude or ChatGPT, you can just be honest. You don't have to, you can bring the news no matter what it is. And you can get that out. Presents me with 3 examples back. How do I say this? I pick the one that is most suitable for me, that still feels authentic to me. And then my resources get used for the deep brain work. My resources get used for the strategy. They get used for the things that make me humanly impactful at my job. To me, at the end of the day, I was no longer craving sitting in a room of silence by myself, staring at the wall, trying to piece myself back together for the next day because I didn't want to be a monster. I wanted to fill the well. And it has been an incredible tool to of that weight off.
That sounds amazing. Keeping your energy, like more of your energy with the help of AI. That sounds really amazing. Like every introvert knows that, right? Interacting with people a lot, just like you enjoy it, but it just drains you. It takes your energy and you just need to recharge after a while. And just like using AI to balance that, that is really, really cool. Noe, when you think about the future of work and leadership in an AI-shaped world, what do you believe remains deeply human and just worth protecting? And what gives you hope these days?
This is one of my favorite questions because AI is changing at the speed of light, or just shy of the speed of light. So often when I talk about what AI can't do, I always say can't currently do, because we should expect that it will continue to get better and better. What I think remains deeply human that I talk about a lot is judgment. Judgment for me is AI capable of judgment? Yes. But one thing I often say is that there is no 2 a.m. moment for AI. AI makes a decision and it never again considers, was that the right decision? Should I revisit that decision? This was a good decision and this is what I should learn from that decision. Or this was a poor decision and now I'm going to turn around and make a better one. It doesn't lay awake at night wondering. It makes a decision and it moves forward. And sometimes that decisiveness is very helpful in tasks. But the human capacity for judgment, for context, and the courage to make decisions that matter, those stay human, no matter how intelligent AI becomes. AI can surface patterns and it can do beautiful, amazing things, but it can't hold accountability. And I think that what gives me hope is that this moment is forcing a real conversation about what work is actually for and who it should serve. I think we have a genuine chance to build something better, to build better workplaces, things that we haven't imagined yet. And by the way, that AI can't help us imagine a new way of doing, because it can only reference the data it already has, which in this case, what has happened already. That's for humans to continue to do. And I think taking that genuine chance, if we're willing to ask the harder questions alongside the technical ones and not forget that human component, that gives me a lot of hope. It isn't easy or simplistic. It takes us becoming present again, re-engaging in a different way, because work has become work for us. And in this new world, those deeply human pieces, I think, are ones that will hone more, will get better at. If those aren't your strong points, those are things you can deepen. And then those who happen to excel in those areas will hopefully become even more effective.
Really, really nice. What you're describing really points to a future where work and leadership is just becoming even more human, not less, even as technology becomes more powerful and AI becomes more advanced. Really, really nice. Thank you so much for this conversation. I really loved how honest, nuanced, and practical this felt.
Thank you. It's been no joy talking with you. I so love your intelligence around AI and your thoughtful questions about things that truly matter. I really appreciate, Julia.
Thank you so much, Noe. Like, highly appreciated. Very, very honored. What just stays with me the most is the reminder that meaningful AI transformation is not just about tools, speed, or shiny capabilities. It is about structure and trust and discernment and people. And I think your perspective on leadership, authenticity, and human-centered AI is such an important one for this moment. To everyone listening, I hope this episode gave you not only a few practical ideas, but also a broader sense of what responsible and deeply human AI leadership can look like in practice. Make sure to follow Noe on social media. You'll find all relevant information in the show notes. And if you enjoyed this conversation, please like, comment, and share this episode with someone who should hear it. And as always, thank you for being here and for supporting She Builds with AI. Stay tuned and keep